Vanetta, is it okay if we have Colleen read our housekeeping announcement?
Okay, wonderful. Welcome committee members, liaisons, and members of the public to the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission Law School Fellowship Grants Committee meeting. Thank you for joining us. We're using Zoom with the goal to foster a more inclusive environment and effective meeting. If you would like to comment during the meeting, please use the raised hand feature. Please utilize this tool to virtually indicate that you would like to speak in order to help the chair facilitate the discussion. A friendly reminder that this is a video conference and to please be aware of your surroundings behind you. All LSTFC and committee meetings will be recorded and posted to the State Bar website. Zoom captioning is available. To enable, select live transcript at the bottom of your Zoom screen, then select enable auto transcription. Thank you.
Okay, and again, welcome to our Legal Aid Leaders Fellowship Grants Committee meeting. Can you please call the roll?
Sure. Coleman?
Here.
Escobedo?
Here.
Rosie?
Here.
Campbell?
Here.
We have a quorum. And then I see Laura Brown from Judicial Council also joining us today.
Hi, everyone.
Great. Are there any public comments?
Yes, there is one hand raised. I'm allowing them to speak.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. It's Regan from the Legal Aid Association of California. I just want to say quickly that LAC would support scenario number 2, but we would also like to add that if there is more funding than anticipated or if an organization returns the funds when they can't hire, that we would trust the State Bar staff to redistribute based on which organizations had the strongest applications and had communicated that they would hire. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion?
I'll move.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Oh. Roll,
Yes, thank you.
roll call.
Coleman?
Approve.
Escobedo?
Yes.
Rosie?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll move to the review and approval recommendations.
Great.
Elizabeth?
Okay, Lauren, I think, is going to share her screen.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yes. Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. So today we are presenting the staff recommendation for the Legal Aid Leaders Fellowship Grant Awards. So just a quick reminder about this fellowship grant. It was established out of the Business and Professions Code, which directs $5 of the $45 opt-out donation on the California Attorney License Fee Statement to fund competitive grants for QLSPs and support centers to fund law student summer fellowships. The 2024 Legal Aid Leaders Fellowship is the second year of the State Bar's administration of this grant. So for this cycle, applications were due on October 10th. We received 34 applications that were submitted on time, and applicants requested funding for 170 fellows, totaling nearly $1.65 million. Most applicants requested funding for between 1 and 8 fellows, and there were 3 applicants requesting funding for 12, 15, and 35 fellows. The applicants described opportunities for fellows to gain practical experience and skills, such as legal research and writing, client interviewing, facilitating legal clinics, and assisting attorneys in all aspects of direct legal representation. There were 2 review teams. Each review team scored approximately half of the applications. So review team 1 included Chair Vanetta Campbell, member Novella Coleman, and staff Colleen Cito and Elizabeth Hom. Review team 2 included Kristen Rossi, member Kristen Rossi, member Efrain Escobedo, and me and Elizabeth Hom as staff. Staff reviewed and calibrated all the applications, and the review teams met to calibrate applications on November 13th to ensure consistency in the approach to evaluating applications. And each review team held 2 more calibration sessions separately for the remainder of the applications. So there were 100 points possible. So 70 points were possible for the selection criteria and 30 points were possible for funding preferences. Scores range from approximately 59 to 91 with an average score of approximately 80. For the selection criteria, scores ranged from 39 to 70 with an average score of 60. And for funding preferences, scores ranged from 10 to 30 with an average score of approximately 20. In making funding award recommendations, staff considered a number of factors. We considered the grant's purpose defined by statute, which is to support law students interested in pursuing a career in legal services for indigent persons. The statute further specifies preferences to fund proposals for fellowships serving rural or underserved communities that serve clients regardless of immigration or citizenship status. We also considered the overwhelming support for the grant opportunity from grantees and law schools. And the statute does specify that this is a competitive grant process. So we wanted to ensure that the process was in fact competitive. We also considered that this would be an opportunity for a number of many applicants to fund law students at a living wage when they otherwise would offer limited or no compensation at all. So we came up with 2 funding scenarios. In the first scenario, the priority is funding applicants with top overall rubric scores. So this approach maximizes the competitiveness of the grant, basing awards on the quality of the applications and fully funding the highest scoring proposals when possible. This funding scenario would fund 76 fellows at 16 applicant organizations. The 18 organizations that would be potentially unfunded based on this funding scenario includes organizations who specialize in legal services to critically underserved populations, including people in rural areas, children, veterans, seniors, and people with mental health disabilities. For funding scenario 2, the priority is for applicants with top overall rubric scores. However, the scenario also provides funding in part to all applicants using a tiered approach that offers the greatest potential awards to the organizations with the strongest applications, while ensuring all qualified applicants benefit from the grant. So in the top tier, there would be 4 applicants with an overall score of 90 and above who would receive full requested funding. For these organizations, the total number of fellows requested ranges from 2 to 5. In the middle tier, there's 16 applicants with scores between 80 and 89.3 who would receive funding for 1 or more fellows. And our approach was to go down the list of these organizations in the middle tier and add 1 fellow until we reached their maximum requested or until the funding ran out. And then in the last tier, there are 14 applicants with an overall score below 80 who would receive funding for 1 fellow. This scenario allows for 77 fellows at 34 organizations to be funded. Staff recommends funding scenario number 2, which would fund a greater number of organizations. There's overwhelming need for dedicated support for dedicated funding to support law student interns and create a large statewide network of organizations with the ability to compensate law students. So this provides opportunities for organizations to develop their summer law student program, many of which will be able to compensate law students at a living age when they otherwise would offer limited or no compensation at all. So the funding scenarios in the previous slide were developed using the revenue amount received in 2023. So the actual revenue for this grant will be confirmed in March of 2024. The amount of funding available to award grantees may vary from the predicted scenarios. once the revenue from the 2024 attorney licensing fee statement is determined. So staff requests that the committee recommend the executive committee delegate authority to staff to modify the distribution of awards based on the funding amount identified in March 2024 using the method in the selected funding scenario. Also, grantees are required to identify their fellows by May 1st of 2024. If a grantee has yet to recruit by that date, it will be required to return its awards so the State Bar can reallocate the funding to another applicant. Additionally, in the event that a successful applicant decides that they cannot accept funds, those funds would also need to be reallocated. So due to the short time frame between when applicants are required to confirm fellows and the beginning of the grant term, staff requests that the Legal Aid Leaders Fellowship Committee recommend the executive committee delegate authority to staff to reallocate any returned or declined funds to applicants based on the method of the selected funding scenario. And then here is the recommendation.
So if there are any questions about the recommendations or the two points where we're requesting delegation of authority, we're happy to take those questions now.
I have a quick question. First, thanks for the presentation and looking at the scenarios to try and accommodate. I know where your recommendation is scenario 2. I have a question on the third result or the third resolution part of the recommendation, and that is, so when you're talking about if they don't meet the May 1st, 2024 for recruitment, I have 2 questions in it. One is, have you explored, does that seem practical, and would that create a lot of admin costs if you're just pulling back right away after all that work and then pull them out? Sort of, would you use criteria to figure out what's the likelihood that they wouldn't if they didn't meet May 1st? Or what if a lot of them don't and now you have to apply it across? Like, just curious, the contingency planning for that. And would you apply it just as a general rule, or would it be sort of in some way tiered as well, where, you know, some are being held to it, but some are not, or would it be blanket? So that just triggered for me with some of those contingencies of what happens if a large number don't meet May 1st, you're going to claw everyone back.
So we don't anticipate a lot of organizations to not be able to confirm their fellow by May 1st. The feedback we received in the for summer 2023 was that this grant was too late in the cycle because everybody had already confirmed their fellows for the summer, and our timeline for summer 2023 was April, May. So we're pretty confident that organizations will be able to meet this deadline. And if they aren't able to meet this deadline, we think it would be very difficult for them to recruit at that point, because a lot of law students have already made their plans for the summer. So we don't think there will be a large number, but should there be organizations that aren't able to recruit for whatever reason, or need to decline funds for whatever reason, we think that we would be able to redistribute the funds to the existing recipients of the grant, kind of based on the funding model that we used to develop scenario 2.
Yeah, and if I can just say again, thank you, Lauren, Elizabeth, and Efren for the, comments thus far. I would agree that the early preparation really facilitates agencies being able to do their, recruitment in, a planful way and kind of be prepared for any contingencies. And I also think that the funding scenario number 2 gives the, the range, so that all applicants have an opportunity to have, the fellowship available. And I think they kind of boost our interest in, increasing access to public services. So, thank you for that process.
Can I see Judge Rosie and then Novella have their hands raised?
Thanks, Elizabeth. So thank you all for the hard work and quick turnaround that I know you had to do on this. And I agree with scenario number 2. I have one concern though.
Sure.
And it has to do with what Lauren said in the beginning about wanting this to be competitive. And if I read the slide correctly, the lowest score was a 59. And so I'm a little, I mean, that's sort of a failing grade, but I'm a little concerned, and maybe they only asked for 1, or maybe they asked for 10. I don't know. I don't think that was in my group. But that funding that entity at the same level that we might be funding someone who scored in the 80s makes it feel less competitive. And again, I'm saying this also while approving scenario number 2, because I think that it is in the spirit of the legislation that we try and fund as much as we can. But to the extent that we want this to be competitive, I'm concerned that we might not be sending the right message when we're funding someone who scored a 59 at the same level that we're funding someone who scored an 87 or an 89. I'm not saying we should do anything about that, but I don't know how many people scored under, even 70, but it doesn't feel super competitive to me. And I know that was one of the things we were trying to do.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Go
I was
ahead, Lauren.
wondering if I could jump in. Yeah, so to clarify for this funding scenario, it's below 80, where all the applicants below 80 receive funding for 1 fellow. Yes, so
but if somebody who scored
80
89 only asked for 1, they only got the 1, right?
right, technically,
And-
yes. Yeah.
And actually, if I could share my screen, Lauren, to show the spreadsheet, which is on page, I think it's 154 of the agenda item. Yeah, it's 155 of the agenda item, but let me share the spreadsheet so that we can just look at it together quickly. So this is the spreadsheet, and I'm sharing the spreadsheet and not the agenda item in case the committee wants to see anything. So in this lower tier, so this is sorted by score. So the highest score, 91, is at the top, and the lowest, 59.3, is at the bottom. And so this is so the lowest scoring, they requested 12. We're awarding them 1. We would propose to award them 1. And the next lowest requested 3, and we're proposing to award them 1. So I mean, I think in many instances in this tier, they're requesting more than they're being awarded, which may address the competitive issue.
Okay.
And then this is just
Yeah. I mean, I'm still in favor of scenario 2. I really am. I'm not saying that to sort of throw a wrench. I'm just, it does give me pause.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I just want to point out, this is highlighted because they were tied. So for staff, we were just highlighting that for ourselves. Novella?
Yeah, I was also just gonna say that the page 155 of the agenda item, like, I appreciate that staff prepared that, because I also was curious just from reading the first few pages that explained what the recommendation was, what happened with the lower ones. And so I think I'm also in favor of the scenario 2. In looking at the spreadsheet, I was noticing that a lot of the difference between scenario 1 and scenario 2, like one of the key issues is whether to fund all 35 fellows for Vet Tzedek, which would be $350,000 versus like scenario 2, which distributes that more. And so I think just thinking of how that broke up, and also our earlier discussion about like what would it look like for one organization to supervise 35 fellows over the summer and how feasible that would be. So I thought, even though I agree that their application was more competitive than the other ones, that it didn't quite, the scoring didn't quite reflect our concern about the realities of hosting 35 fellows. And then I remember scoring Immigrant Defenders Law Center, and I think one of the issues there were less so that the organization itself we had concerns about, but more of the limited responses, like the brief responses in their application. And so one of my concerns just from last time we scored, or last year and this time, is not wanting to penalize organizations that don't have like someone whose primary focus is drafting the application. So I think it's hard to know what to do with like applicants like that, where they didn't probably devote as much time to their application, but also trying to like pull back beyond the surface and understand like what's actually going on at that organizations and what their capacity is to host fellows and create a good experience for them.
Thank you, Novella. But did you have your hand raised? Yeah.
Sure, thank you. Again, great comments. I can also add that we don't exactly know what the final funding amount will be. And so that might actually impact, the amount, both the quantity of approval as well as the amount. But I think, good suggestion. We all through very diligent process, right? Reviewing all the applications, reviewing all the criteria, and really having, more applications to consider, within that early time frame was a boost. But I would agree that, I guess, should the funding be resumed next year, we have even more ways of refining those kind of expectations.
Should I put the recommendation back on screen, or?
Yeah, why don't you do that, Efrain? Do you have another question, comment or question?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. So, Vanita, and thanks for the reminder, like, should in the process the allocation be larger than what the staff is projecting? If we go with scenario 2, and I think this is part of the public comment, just assuring, is that the case that you would pretty much stick with the tiered system, and as funds come in, you allocate from tier 1, 2, and 3 until each tier is fully funded and sort of trickling it down? Is that how
Yes.
that would work? Okay.
Yes. And it would start with tier 2 because tier 1
Tier 1 is fully
well,
funded.
except for Vet Tzedek. I think they're actually, I'm sorry. Tier 1 is fully funded, Vet Tzedek is in tier 2, and so yeah. I think yeah. So yes, that's correct, Efrain.
And then I take it that in the agreement language for the grant, you would put the clawback date, the May 1, right? To say that's your trigger. And I would take it that it's sort of has, in other words, it's not zero sum, meaning if you said if we gave you funding to recruit 6, but you recruited 4, you're only returning the 2. You don't return everybody's money. Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other comments? Okay, can we move to the resolution?
Move to adopt staff's recommendation as result.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Holman,
Yes.
Escobedo,
Yes.
Rosie,
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, and then we have Colleen.
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the presentation. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Colleen Cito. I am a program analyst with the Office of Access and Inclusion. And today I am presenting an overview of the 2023 Legal Aid Leaders Fellowship Grant evaluation. The overview topics include reporting requirements, key findings, services provided, which is comprised of target populations, limited versus full scope cases, other services provided, and we'll end with other highlights. All grantees were required to submit a final evaluation report at the end of the grant period. The reporting period was from May 15th through September 30th, 2023, or the duration of the fellowship. Please note that the fellowship duration may have varied from organization to organization. Grantees reported on several aspects, which included expenditures related to the fellow's compensation, supervision, training, support, and their recruitment efforts, how the fellows provided feedback, lessons learned, and any changes that may have been implemented based on fellows' feedback, scope and summary of services provided by the fellows, and the organizational benefits resulting from hosting law fellows. Next, I would like to share some key findings. Grantees spent $748,229 in support of 76 LALF fellows at 35 grantee organizations. Approximately $10,000 of unspent grant funds will be returned to the State Bar and redistributed in the summer 2024 grant cycle. Let's see. Next, fellows helped with 656 limited scope and 401 full scope cases. Fellows also helped with non-case services such as self-help clinics, educational workshops, and outreach events. From these non-case services, the fellows helped 1,257 individuals. Services and support were provided across 13 areas of law, with the majority in housing, immigration, and family domestic violence matters. Fellows assisted key target populations, and that included persons of color, immigrants, and persons with physical or mental health disabilities.
And I would just note, sorry, before you move on, Colleen,
Sure.
can you go
Yeah.
I would just note that the numbers in terms of where law students are being plugged in for the summer and providing support and services tracks with the services that our organizations provide. For example, fellows helping with, the majority limited scope matters. The majority of our, the case of the matters that our organizations assist on are limited scope, so that it tracks. And so I just wanted to point that out. Same with the subject areas. Housing, immigration, family, and domestic violence matters are kind of the areas where a lot of the work of the grantee organizations is.
Thank you, Elizabeth. As just mentioned, these are the target populations served by the fellows, with the top three being, as mentioned before, persons of color, immigrants, and persons with physical or mental health disabilities. In reporting limited scope and full scope cases, fellows assisted more with limited scope cases, 656 as reported here, than the full scope cases at 401 cases. Again, just highlighting that most of the cases were in the areas of housing, domestic violence, and immigration. And as Elizabeth had just mentioned, these areas of law do track with high number of cases in other state bar grants, such as homelessness prevention and the EAF grants. Other services provided by the fellows included self-help clinics, education workshops, and outreach events. Grantees also reported 503 hotline calls and 194 other services not captured in the above categories. Here are notable other highlights. Grantees expressed overall satisfaction with their respective programs and the impact that the fellows had on the organizations and the communities that they serve. Grantees recruited diverse and talented fellows, where fellows received rigorous and substantive legal training and supervision. Grantees increased their capacity to serve clients, reached more diverse communities, helped their own attorneys develop training skills, as well as contributed to the legal aid pipeline. And grantees shared some lessons learned. The importance of flexibility, tailoring experiences to individual interests, and having very clear communications. These highlights underscore the importance and the positive impact of the Legal Aid Leaders Fellowship Grants, which is providing critical funding for the purpose of supporting law students interested in pursuing a career in legal services for indigent persons. This concludes the overview. Thank you. And please let me know if you have any comments or questions.
Colleen, thank you again for the thorough presentation. Just had one question. Relates to the first, if you go back one slide around, just technically, it said it was $10,000 that was unused for that period.
That's correct.
Any feedback on that circumstance? Was it returned by one agency or some, or how did that come about?
Sure. So we're talking about 5 organizations, and it varied from something very nominal, like $80 up to maybe about a couple of $1,000s. And the main reasons revolved around the fellows working less hours than anticipated, which meant less than full time, which also then trickled down to they may not have qualified for, let's say, benefits, and it also reduced the payroll taxes. And then one organization did indicate that they did receive some external contributions where they utilized that first and didn't end up using up all of the state bar funds. So those were the 2 main reasons.
Okay, thank you. Because I mean, it speaks to the importance of, those funds were rolled over, into 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes a big difference too. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments? Well, I'd like to thank, any other comments, Elizabeth, before we?
I don't see any. And Colleen, you can stop sharing your screen.
Other comments, Laura? Okay, well, on that note, it's like to thank the committee for second year participation. Always value the feedback and the various perspectives. Again, thank you so much to the staff for their always thorough, support and preparation in this endeavor. And I think most importantly, this opportunity to look forward to more fellows being engaged next summer. So thank you all. And with that, I will call to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.